In 1991, 20-year-old Angela Hammond made a late-night call to her boyfriend from a payphone. There was nothing urgent. She just wanted to say goodnight, to hear his voice one last time before heading home. As they chatted casually, Angela mentioned a strange man nearby, standing next to a dirty green pickup truck circling the parking lot. She laughed it off at first, but then came the scream. Terrified, her boyfriend jumped into his car and raced toward the payphone. Just as he arrived, he saw the truck speeding off, with Angela inside, struggling in the back. He chased them down the road, desperate to save her. But then his car broke down. Helpless, he watched the truck disappear into the darkness, taking the woman he loved with it. He had been seconds away, seconds from rescuing her. And to this day, over 30 years later, Angela Hammond has never been found. The case remains unsolved, shrouded in mystery, fueled by theories and haunted by a single chilling truth. Someone out there knows what happened that night.
After shooting his best friend in the face, he then ate some of his brains. I'm True Crime Caitlin, and this is the murder of Donald Liming. Donald Liming and David Allen Chapin had been best friends since their childhood. Both of their families lived nearby each other, so they were close and they were all really good friends. When their college years quickly rolled around and both of the young men decided that they were going to be going to the same college, it was a no-brainer that they would get an apartment together and become roommates. They went to college in Milford, Ohio. On the evening of the 3rd of October 1978, both Donald and David, who were 23 years old, got into a really fiery argument about their different religions. David was Baptist, meanwhile Donald was Buddhist, Catholic and pagan. At some point during their argument, David would pull a gun on his best friend and shot Donald in the eye, which killed him instantly. After this, he then consumed parts of Donald's brain. David would load Donald's body into the boot of his car and drove to the campus of the university that they were attending, Raymond Walters College, which is now US Blue Ash College. David tracked down his professor and quite casually told him that he had a dead body in the boot of his car if this professor just so happened to want it so he could dissect it in one of their classes. Obviously, the professor said absolutely not and contacted the police, who swiftly arrested David. At the beginning of his trial, he tried to put forward a plea of insanity. He was assessed by a court-ordered psychiatrist, and he told the psychiatrist that he had only ate part of Donald's brain because it was a mutual agreement. This was something that Donald wanted and consented to. The psychiatrist would note that as David was describing what he had done to Donald and what followed, he had a warm smile on his face. David Chapin would be determined fit to stand trial, and he would go on to be convicted of the murder of Donald Liming. Since his incarceration 47 years ago, he has applied for parole 6 separate times, all of which have been denied.
Listen to serial killer Gary Hilton make fun of an elderly married couple as he prepared to kill them.
He's carrying this trekking stick, this hiking stick. So he goes after me with that. So I just brushed it away and then whack, hit him on the side of the head. Then pulled out a pepper, sprayed him in the face. He steps forward a few feet and goes down. And then he does the craziest thing. I can't believe this. He said, "Irene, I can't see. Hit him." I just beaten him down. And he's a big guy, 6 foot plus. And now he's telling his wife to fight me. And bless her heart, Irene, she was all heart. She springs right into a fencing position, like on guard, and pow, and stabs me in the chest. She knew what was coming, and I immediately laid into her.
A married couple in their 80s, Jack and Irene Bryant, were hiking through Pisgah National Forest in October 2007 when they unknowingly ran across serial killer Gary Michael Hilton. Killing the couple just for cash, Hilton later admitted to attacking Jack with a crowbar, pepper spraying, and then abducting him before eventually killing him. Irene, who refused to get in Hilton's van, was bludgeoned to death right there on the trail. Hilton later reported to being momentarily blinded by Irene's blood that had sprayed into his eyes as he bludgeoned her. Jack and Irene had 4 children, 11 grandchildren, and were murdered for $300.
Imagine needing a safe place to live and moving into the home of a woman who seems kind, gentle, and almost like a grandma. A woman who promises to take care of you. But what you don't know is that this woman has already killed before. Dorothea Puente ran a boarding house in Sacramento for elderly and disabled tenants, people who society often overlook. To neighbors, she was sweet and helpful. To social workers, she was trustworthy. But behind that soft voice and warm smile was a calculated predator. One by one, her tenants began disappearing. Their social security checks kept getting cashed, but no one questioned where they went. Eventually, investigators made a horrifying discovery. Bodies buried beneath her home. 7 people were found, and some believed there were more. What's even more disturbing is that Dorothea had a long criminal history long before any of this happened. Fraud, theft, forgery. She'd been arrested multiple times, but back then, records weren't easily accessible, and no one was connecting the dots. So she was allowed to continue preying on the most vulnerable people, right under everyone's noses. It's terrifying to think that a simple background check could have revealed this pattern long before it became too late. Someone who was trusted to provide safety was hiding a history of manipulation and crime. You can never be too safe, and you never truly know who someone is just by how they present themselves. That's why it's so important to use tools like public data check to protect yourself and the people you care about. Always look up new people. Always do background checks. Stay safe, guys.
This case will put you off ever talking to anyone online ever again. This male stabbed his girlfriend over 90 times and then FaceTimed his sister to show her the dead body. Ashley Wadsworth was a bright young girl. She was very sporty and musical, loved playing tennis and also the clarinet. In 2015, she met Jack Seppel on Facebook. Now, Ashley was roughly 11 or 12 and Jack was about 15 or 16. As young people do, they spend ages and ages just talking online, chatting about life and really getting to know each other. Ashley was actually from Canada and Jack was from Essex in the UK. This was a really long distance friendship, and over the years they grew closer and closer, and when Ashley turned 16, the relationship became quite romantic. Jack treated Ashley really nicely at first and was showering her with attention and gifts. Eventually, Ashley grew quite fond of him and she decided she wanted to meet up. She asked her parents often if she could travel to meet Jack in the UK, but obviously they were apprehensive. They felt it was risky because obviously he lived in a different country and the pair had never met. To try and make them more comfortable with this, Jack actually spoke to Ashley's family. He tried to reassure them that she would be safe with him and he said he would guard her with his life. Little did they know she wouldn't need protection from anyone apart from him. In November 2021, when Ashley was 19, the pair met for the first time. They went sightseeing around London and Ashley documented their travels on social media. To the outside world, things looked great. However, things started to take a dark turn over the next couple of months. Gradually, Jack started controlling everything Ashley was doing. He started demanding to know where she was at all times and demanding her social media passwords. Now, this made Ashley very uncomfortable, obviously, but she was in a really difficult position. She was in a foreign country and she was staying with Jack. Jack then started to become physically abusive towards her. He covered her with bruises and in one horrifying altercation he actually smashed a glass over her head. Ashley tried to reach out to people for help, but it was clear she was terrified of Jack. At one point she sent her friend a message warning, "Be careful what you say, he's watching." She then unsent the message to try and hide that communication. On the 1st of February 2022, Ashley turned up at Jack's mum's house with no shoes on, crying hysterically. Jack had smashed her phone up, cut her hand and beaten her up. Following this incident, her parents actually booked her a flight home. Things had become far too dangerous for her to stick around. As I said before though, she was in a foreign country alone with nowhere to stay, so she had to go back to Jack's house to wait to catch her flight. That day, when it was nighttime in Canada, Ashley's sister received a text begging for her to wake up and answer the phone. Now, she obviously didn't see this until she woke the following day, and then she tried and failed to get through to Ashley. She had no idea what was going on, and that's when police showed up to Jack's house. He refused to open the door, so they forced entry and found a hideous scene. Jack had been lying next to Ashley's dead body in a pool of blood. Shockingly, Jack had FaceTimed his sister to show her the dead body. Jack was arrested and admitted to strangling and stabbing his girlfriend. He was sentenced to life with a minimum of 23.5 years.
Imagine being executed by hanging and the rope snapping. I'm True Crime Caitlin, and this is the murder of Elizabeth Atkinson. Mary Nicholson was a young woman who was described as weak of intellect, working for a family in Little Stainton, County Durham. She worked as a servant for the Atkinson family, who were a very well-respected family of farmers. Mary was employed by Elizabeth, who was the mother and was the head of the house. However, she was tormented by Elizabeth's son, John. John was very cruel towards Mary and would often take advantage of her. This went on for so long and was so severe that the only way Mary thought that she could stop it was if she killed him. In April 1798, Mary travelled from Little Stainton to Darlington to attend a market where she bought a big amount of arsenic. She returned home back to the farm where she laced a bag of flour with the poisonous powder. See, Elizabeth would always freshly bake John a dessert, and Mary had laced this flour anticipating that Elizabeth would make John the dessert, he would eat it, and that would kill him. But this didn't happen. John had returned home from work that day and told his mum that he didn't want a dessert that night as he had already ate while he was at work. Not wanting to waste anything, Elizabeth decided to use this laced flour to bake the family a loaf of bread, which they all tucked into the next morning. All 5 of the Atkinsons came over incredibly ill after eating this bread. Arsenic poisoning can have symptoms including severe stomach pain, sickness and diarrhea, extensive muscle cramping, and much more. A doctor was called who was able to treat 4 of the Atkinson family members, including John. However, Elizabeth, after weeks of living in agonising pain, would die on the 16th of April, 1798. Mary was absolutely distraught upon hearing that Elizabeth had died. She deeply regretted what had happened, and she admitted that she had poisoned the flour, but she explained that her intent was to murder John, who had been cruel to her, not anybody else. Upon hearing this, instead of turning Mary into the authorities, the Atkinsons just sacked her and kicked her out and told her never to return. Likely this was so Mary didn't expose her ill treatment from John. For days she wandered the cold, dark moors of Darlington. She was starving, she was penniless, she was homeless, she was an orphan, she had no family or friends, and so with nowhere else to go and feeling desperate, she returned back to the Atkinsons in Little Stainton, who then turned her into the police. Mary Nicholson's trial was held at Durham Assizes, where she was charged with the intentional murder of Elizabeth Atkinson and was sentenced to death. However, a problem arose. Mary was very forthcoming about what had happened, admitting that she had poisoned the flour, but always said that she never intended to kill Elizabeth. All she had done was poison the flour. It was Elizabeth who had decided to bake it and then consume it of her own free will. So, could Mary be sentenced to death for accidentally killing Elizabeth when she was intending to kill John? Her case was sent to the Common Laws Court to decide. Over the next 11 months, Mary would be held at the Bridgewell House of Corrections, which was under Durham Elvitts Bridge. During her time here, she gained the trust of her jailer. He would employ her as a housekeeper, and over time she was given more and more freedom. She would be allowed to go into Durham out of the prison to run errands. She would be welcomed into her jailer's home where his family were to help out with cooking, cleaning, with the kids, just being a helping hand in general. And it got to a point where she literally only used the prison as somewhere to sleep. Mary had successfully integrated herself within her community. People really took a liking to her and they pitied her after hearing the story of how cruelly John had treated her and that she was only trying to defend herself by killing him but then accidentally killed Elizabeth. Her community reassured her that there would be no way that they would hang her for that. She became an upstanding, valued, very well liked and respected part of the community, and despite the likelihood of her upcoming execution, she never once attempted to flee. On the 17th of July 1799, the Common Laws Court had made their decision. Mary Nicholson was guilty of the murder of Elizabeth Atkinson. She was sentenced to death. She was going to be hanged in a week's time. She was taken to Framwellgate Moor Gallows for her execution, and people travelled from all over to witness it. It was said that while being led to the gallows, Mary handled herself with grace and respect. The noose was tied around her neck and then Mary was hanged. She was hanging for a minute, maybe 2, before the rope snapped and she plummeted several feet to the ground. To many people in the crowd, this was a sign of God that Mary was not supposed to be executed. This was him intervening, wanting to halt the execution, but the authorities didn't see it the same way. It would take an hour for the rope to be replaced, and once again, Mary was taken to the gallows where she was hanged, this time losing her life.
Imagine hearing glass shatter and then watching a body fall from the 17th floor. I don't think anyone expected what police found next. It was the middle of summer 2011 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Josh Hilberling was 23 years old. Now, he'd been married to his wife Amber for around a year, and the pair lived in a high-rise building together. Amber was actually only 19 years old, but she was sure she wanted to build a life together with Josh. Josh was described as charming, intelligent, funny, the exact kind of guy that Amber wanted to be with. Amber said they complemented each other just so well. They were head over heels in love. And then when Amber fell pregnant, to the outside world, everyone was like, oh my god, these guys have got it absolutely perfect. But if there's one thing you guys know from my videos, it's that appearances can be deceiving. Now, the reason the pair had moved to Tulsa in the first place was Josh got kicked out of the Air Force due to substances. There were rumors that he was selling them, taking them, so he just got booted out. It was also obviously not the kind of thing that the couple wanted to shout from the rooftops. They wanted to paper over the cracks and portray this ideal lifestyle, but it was causing a lot of arguments. So when the locals started hearing news that this body had fallen from this high-rise building, everybody was stunned and nobody could make sense of it. Police raced to the scene expecting the worst. I mean, people don't usually survive falling from the 17th floor. When they got to the building, it kind of took them a couple of minutes to actually process what they were seeing. As they approached the bottom of the building, it kind of looked like crumpled up clothes on the floor. It wasn't just clothes though, it was Josh, and stood over him was Amber, heavily pregnant, admitting to pushing him. Amber's nan had also raced over to the scene because she'd got a call off Amber straight away explaining what had happened. And the nan couldn't really even process what she was being told. She was like, what do you mean Josh is dead? Amber and the nan were driven to the police station and put in a room. Now, I don't know about you guys, let me know what you think in the comments. I personally, if I'm in a police station in a room, I'm going to presume it's being recorded. For some reason, Amber just didn't seem to realize that cameras would be rolling. She started bawling her eyes out, telling her nan everything, every detail. She said they were having this big fight. She pushed him against the wall. He fell out of the building. It was crazy. This was all over the news and everybody was arguing. It seemed like everybody picked one side or another. Either they thought that Amber was this evil abuser and had murdered her husband on purpose, or they thought Josh was the abuser and she was acting in self-defense. So the case went to trial and some disturbing details came out. No one was expecting anyone to have proof that Amber actually had attacked Josh before. She'd smacked him over the head with a lamp and he'd had to go to hospital and have stitches. In fact, he'd even filed a protective order against her, but then I don't think they ended up finalizing it because they basically made up. Her family was defending her though, saying that basically every single couple at one point have been rough with each other. I don't know what you guys think about that. I'd be inclined to disagree. I don't think everybody pushes and shoves each other as a given. Now, she was eventually found guilty of second-degree murder, but that's not where the story ends. Amber eventually gave birth to the baby boy, and the family took over custody because at this point she was in a medium secure prison. And Amber ended up finding love again. She got together with a woman in prison called Patricia, and the pair had a long, happy relationship. But at the end of October 2016, tragically for her infant child, Amber was found dead in her prison cell. The coroner ruled the death as a self-unaliving, leaving the baby boy an orphan.
The Amazon review killer. I've heard of serial killers doing a lot of wild and stupid stuff, but making Amazon reviews for the items that you were using to carry out your killings, that's a new one, for sure. Todd Cullup is one of those serial killers that seems to have been born evil. Like, out of the womb, this kid was scary and aggressive, and he had no remorse, and he would always be really violent towards other children and animals. Todd had a lot of super disturbing, violent fantasies before he was even like a preteen. and he was a huge like mommy's boy, but even his own mother was terrified of him. Like, she would lock her door at night because she was so afraid of her kid. And this was before Todd was even 9 years old, so it's not a great start. Things actually got so bad that when Todd was 9 years old, his mom sent him to like a mental behavioral institute for children, and he spent like 3.5 months there. But it did not help. Actually, things just got worse and worse from there, if you could believe it. When Todd was 15 years old, he had this huge crush on this 14-year-old girl that went to his school, but she rejected him repeatedly. And instead of moving on like any other normal person would, he assaulted her by R-wording her. Luckily, only a couple hours after the attack, he was arrested and he was tried as an adult and sentenced to 15 years in prison. But when Todd was released, he was a 30-year-old who was super violent and dangerous and hadn't been a member of society since his adolescence. It was a recipe for disaster. Todd was definitely smart, but he was not as smart as he thought he was. He had an inflated ego, definitely like a textbook narcissist, and he could not handle feeling wronged or rejected by people. In April of 2003, Todd decided randomly that he wanted a motorcycle, and he spent $9,000 on like the biggest, baddest motorcycle in the shop. And the employees were trying to suggest him, because he never rode a motorcycle before, like a beginner-friendly model, but he was persistent on getting this $9,000 advanced motorbike. Well, a few days later, Todd went to that motorcycle shop, tail between his legs, and tried to exchange the bike because he had no idea how to use it. And Todd claims that the employees at the motorcycle shop ridiculed him, pretty much laughed in his face and made fun of him. So at a later date, like 6 months after this, Todd decided that he was going to seek revenge on the employees of this motorcycle shop, and he returned and shot and killed all of the employees at the shop. The 4 victims that day were Scott Ponder, who was the owner of the shop. He had a pregnant wife at home and tragically never got to meet his child. His mother and the bookkeeper of the shop, Beverly Guy, who never got to meet the grandchild that she was so excited for. Brian Lucas, who was a manager at the shop, and he left behind a loving wife and 2 children. And Chris Sherbert, who was a young mechanic at the shop. He was described as being the sweetest person you would ever meet, and he really loved to tinker and fix things. Tragically, that crime would go unsolved for the next 13 years as Todd continued to steal people's lives. Despite being on the registered SA offender list, Todd could really manipulate people. He started his own real estate business and was unfortunately really successful at it and made a good amount of money. Todd had his house, but then he also bought 95 acres of land in the middle of nowhere where he created this like fortress compound for crime. He bought all of like the supplies for this like fortress on Amazon and then would make like public Amazon reviews with his intentions for these products. I'm gonna put them on the screen now, pause to read them. Johnny and Megan Coxey were a married couple who were down on their luck. They had their own struggles for sure, but were actively trying to better their lives for themselves, but also their child at the time that they met Todd Cullip. Todd was this successful man that offered the 2 a job, and upon luring them to his fortress, he immediately unalived Johnny in front of his wife Megan, and then he forced Megan into a shipping container that was on his fortress, where he kept her there for 6 days before stealing her life as well. This part of Todd Cullip's case really reminds me of the killer in the show Dexter New Blood, which was like the spin-off series from Dexter. It's a rich man who offers to help young people who are down on their luck by luring them to his secluded property, offering them a job, but then held them hostage and then unalives them. I tried to see if this fictional character was inspired by Todd Cullip, but I didn't see anything that like said it, like confirmed it, but honestly I wouldn't doubt it. It sounds really like similar. Also, if you've never seen the OG Dexter, you would definitely like it if you like my content. They just put it back on Netflix and I'm currently rewatching it, so you should definitely give it a shot if you've never seen it before. 8 months after unaliving Johnny and Megan, Todd lured Kayla Brown and her boyfriend Charlie Carver to his compound with, again, the promise of giving them work. This couple had just recently moved in together and, you know, there's a lot of expenses doing that, so they were just looking for a little bit of extra money. But again, immediately after they got there, Todd shot and unalived Charlie right in front of Kayla, and then he locked her in that shipping container again. He actually shackled her by like her neck and her arms and her feet, and then he locked the shipping container with 5 padlocks and kept her in there for over 2 months. While in captivity, Todd would tell Kayla that eventually Stockholm Syndrome would kick in and she would fall in love with him, and his plan for the two of them would be that eventually she'd want to like kill people with him. He wanted them to kill his girlfriend that he had been seeing, having an affair with, because I'm pretty sure she was married for the past 10 years. And then after that, they would run away together, be like a Bonnie and Clyde partner in crime, like killing couple together. But the longer that Charlie and Kayla were missing, obviously their loved ones got more and more concerned. So to try and like outsmart them, Todd used Charlie's cell phone and posted on Charlie's Facebook page to try and prove that they were fine. But Charlie was not a Facebook person. He never used Facebook. So Charlie, out of nowhere going missing and then posting on Facebook all the time, actually raised more red flags than if Todd never made those Facebook posts in the first place. And this actually led to Todd's downfall. Todd thought that he was this genius that could outsmart everyone, but somehow did not realize that you could track a cell phone right back to his stupid little compound. So police got search warrants for not only Todd's house, but his other property where he was keeping Kayla at the compound. Todd was at his like actual house when the police came to him, and he let them in like no problem because he had nothing to hide there. He had no idea that a whole other set of like police officers were at his other property finding Kayla at the exact same time. There is body cam footage online available of them finding Kayla. I'm not going to include it in this video because like she has like shackles around her neck. It's just not something I'm comfortable sharing online, but I am going to include some audio now of them finding her. Before they even took the shackles off of Kayla, she's telling like them everything that Todd did to her and Charlie, and the strength in her voice is something I find so admirable after everything she had just been through.
Todd Cohep shot Charlie Carver 3 times in the chest, wrapped him in a blue tarp, put him in the bucket of the tractor, locked me down here, and I never seen him again.
I am going to show some body cam footage of Todd learning that they found Kayla alive, because there's something satisfying realizing that like he got caught when he thought that he was some like genius mastermind who didn't even know how cell phones worked.
We have Kayla in your property. She was locked in a container. Okay. Okay, why'd you lock her in a container in your property? She's on your property right now, locked in a container.
The first person that Todd called when he got arrested was, of course, his mommy.
Yeah, a bunch of them. What the fuck? They don't have enough fingers.
After this, he did make a full confession. He does claim to have more victims, although this has never been confirmed, but I would not doubt it, of course. Todd is currently serving a life sentence, and I hope he rots. If you watched to the end, thank you guys for watching. See you tomorrow.
The 17-year-old murderer who lived in his victims' walls without them knowing. This case sounds like a twisted horror film. Hi, I'm Meg. I talk about true crime. Let's get into this case. Daniel LaPlante was born on the 15th of May, 1970. And he did not have the best upbringing. His mother saw him as like a golden child and ignored all of the warning signs. And he was also abused by many adults in his life, including his father, stepfather, and his psychiatrist. As he grew into a teenager, he was very troubled, and people knew this. People he went to school with in Massachusetts thought that he was really creepy. Something just didn't seem right with him. When he was only 16, he found his first family to torment. This family was the Bowens, and it consisted of a father and his 2 daughters. The Bowens had recently lost their mother, which was obviously super traumatizing, and it just makes everything that Daniel did so much worse. Daniel started hiding in their walls, and he did this for nearly an entire year undetected. At first, they think that he did it to start spying on one of the daughters, but it turned super sinister really quick. He learned that their mother had died, so he started messing with them. He started making the family think that they were being haunted. He would move things around, break things, all of the above. And this poor family was terrified, and they had just lost their mother. Mr. Bowen was actually the one who discovered that he was there. He was actually hiding in one of the wardrobes, and when Mr. Bowen opened it, Daniel was just in there with a machete. He got away, but the police were called, and he did in fact return to the house a few times. Mr. Bowen, one day when he was coming home, saw him through the window smiling at him. The police were obviously called, and when they showed up, they walked into the home. There was a knife stabbed into one of the family pictures that said, "I'm still here, come find me, I'm gonna kill you all." I think this is when the police actually started believing the family. That's when the police discovered a tiny space that you could fit between in the walls. And that's where they found Daniel and arrested him for the first time. He was arrested and put in a juvenile facility, and eventually he was moved into an adult jail, but his mother ended up paying his bail. By the time she paid his bail, he was 17 and he was released awaiting trial, and this was the biggest mistake anybody could have made. Because what happened next was just, a case has never made me feel like this. It's just so disgusting and sad what he did next. Less than a week after Daniel was released, he broke into another home and stole some of their guns. He also stole some money. His parents would end up finding these guns that he stole, but he convinced them that he had had them the whole time and he bought them way before he went to jail the first time. And they believed him. I don't know why. And that's when he decided which family to target next. November 16th, 1987, he broke into the home of the Gustafsons for the first time. He stole a few, random things just to make them aware that someone was there. He then asked his brother if he could have some bullets because he wanted to melt them, like some sort of art project. And his brother actually ended up giving him these bullets. Little did the brother know that those bullets would end up taking the lives of 3 people. December 1st, 1987, he entered their home again. This time he had a gun, and it was loaded. 33-year-old Priscilla Gustafson was arriving home with her son. He was only 5, and his name was William. She had no idea when entering her home that there was somebody else in there. That's when Daniel suddenly jumped out and forced them both into one of the rooms. He made 5-year-old William get into the closet. Trigger warning, this next part is probably I've never felt like this about a case. It really got me. Daniel tied Priscilla to the bed and then SA'd her. He then pressed a pillow to her head and shot her. He then dragged 5-year-old William to the bathroom and put him in the bath. He proceeded to drown that poor innocent boy. And just when Daniel thought he was finished at the crime scene, the front door opened. It was Priscilla's 7-year-old daughter, Abigail, coming home from school. He did the same thing to Abigail that he did to her brother. And not that it matters, but I can't find for the life of me, why he did it. I feel like a lot of people who do horrible crimes like this usually have a reason, and maybe it's because the kids were happy, it was a happy family, and he didn't have that. There was one remaining member of the Gustafson family, and that was the father, Andrew. When he got home from work, he walked in to a very eerily quiet home. And when you have kids that young, you never walk into a quiet home. Andrew had to discover his wife and 2 kids dead. He was the only member left alive because Daniel had left at that point. The part of the story that really gets me is that, like, it was December 1st. All the Christmas decorations were up. He had to pass the Christmas tree, the stockings, and then find his entire family murdered because of a 17-year-old boy. As Andrew Gustafson was discovering that his entire family was murdered, Daniel went to his niece's birthday party and he was acting as if nothing had happened. He was 17 years old. It's just like completely baffling. Forensic dogs were called in for the crime scene investigation, and they basically led the police to Daniel's home, which wasn't far away. When the police arrived at Daniel's home, he escaped through the back door, but they found all the evidence that they needed. In Daniel's room, they found everything they needed. Everything that had been reported missing from the Gustafsons' home was found, and a shell casing for a bullet that matched the bullet that killed Priscilla. He did run, but he was caught not long after. And obviously he was arrested and given 3 life sentences. And he is never going to be granted parole, so he is never getting out. This is him then, this is him now. According to a psychiatrist, he felt no remorse for the crime at the time. And there's debate now on whether or not he's rehabilitated, but his psychiatrist says that he is not. He thinks he is, but she is like, no. I can't imagine as well, so that original family, the Bowens that he tormented, imagine how they would feel, knowing that that could have been them. Daniel really traumatized the Bowens. They made it out alive, but it took years to get them back to normal. One of the sisters could not sleep in the dark. She was traumatized, as you would be. You're probably watching this in your house right now. Imagine if you were told that somebody has been watching you, living in your house for the past year, and you had no idea. I honestly think I would be physically sick. Like, it's awful. If you're really into true crime, make sure you follow. The true crime playlist is right here, so you can click on that, and there's like over 100 interesting videos for you to watch. I never know how to end these videos because I don't want to be like, I hope you enjoyed the video, because it's like, it's not an enjoyable case. It's not like a happy thing. So I don't know, guys, help me. What should my new outro be? Like, have a good day. Don't get murdered. I don't know. I'm gonna go now. Have a lovely day. I love you all. Thank you for all of your support. And make sure you like, comment, favorite, share the video, because I work really, really hard on these videos, so I'd really appreciate it. I love you all. Have an amazing day. See you later. Bye.
Do you guys know the sound? Well, I know you know the sound. This sound.
What do you mean?
I know.
I took him to my house, walked him down the street. I don't know why the media acts like the couldn't walk. He walked very well. Walked him upstairs, kicked his ass.
The woman speaking is Angela Simpson, and the story behind that audio is one of the most disturbing true crime cases to ever come out of the state of Arizona. The man she's speaking about is 46-year-old Terry Nelly. For 3 days, Angela Simpson did unspeakable things to that man until she eventually ended it all. Angela Simpson was born November 29th, 1975 in Phoenix, Arizona. Very little is known about her early life, partly because she's refused to share any details in any of the interviews that she's done, and partly because there was never really a deep investigation into her background. But what she has said, in her own words, paints a picture of someone who struggled in their childhood. Quote, I started being hospitalized at 10 years old. I have a mental history from 10 years old until present, end quote. Angela eventually had 4 children as an adult, but she's always refused to talk about them as well. By 2009, she was 33 years old, still living in Phoenix, and not in a good place in her life at all. Terry Neely was also living in Phoenix. Terry was a 46-year-old man living in an assisted care facility. He had some health issues, so he used a motorized wheelchair to get around. He also heavily relied on the employees of the facility to give him daily support. The exact health complications that Terry had are not clear, but the point is that he was a vulnerable man, physically limited, dependent on others, and not in any position to protect himself from any kind of violence. On the evening of August 2nd, 2009, Terry Neely left in his wheelchair from his assisted living facility, and that was the last time anyone would ever see him alive. We later find out that the reason he left is because he was headed to an apartment where he was planning on meeting up with 33-year-old Angela Simpson. The two seemed to be acquainted with each other, and Angela had practically lured Terry to that location on the promise that she would give him something that he wanted. But the truth was that she had no intentions on following through with either of those things. Instead, she invited him there as a trap because for whatever reason, Angela was under the impression that Terry was a snitch. And being invited to an apartment to do what Angela was promising to do to Terry was not an unusual thing, by the way, in the world that Angela was involved in, and I guess in the world that Terry was also once involved in as well. But Angela heard word that Terry snitched on her for doing things that she should not have been doing in the streets. And one thing about Angela is that she had no room in her life for snitches. And the moment that apartment door closed behind Terry, Angela ambushed him, and she did not hold back. Angela Simpson has never described what she said to him first or whether she gave him any warning at all, but based on her own account to investigators, the horror started almost immediately once they were inside. From that point forward and over the next 3 days, Terry Nelly would experience something that homicide detectives with decades of experience on the job would later describe as among the worst things that they have ever seen. The way that investigators were able to determine what happened inside of that apartment comes from Angela's own confessions, the crime scene analysis, and the findings of the medical examiner. Angela Simpson took a tire iron, and when talking about this, when explaining what she did with it, she explained it as using it on Terry in the way that a person might describe fixing a car. She also had a variety of sharp objects that you might find in a kitchen, and she used those to create at least 50 separate injuries. She took a hammer and used it for what hammers are meant to be used for, but on a human being, driving a 3-inch nail directly into Terry's skull. She took pliers to remove his teeth, and as if all of that was not horrific enough, Angela then took a full-length mirror and placed it in front of him so he could watch with his own 2 eyes exactly what was being done to him, because she thought that he, quote, needed to see what he deserved. And when she was satisfied with what she put him through, when she thought that he had suffered as much as he deserved, she then took a television cable and she him, and that was what ended up being his cause of death, meaning that through every other injury, Terry Nelly had been alive not only to feel but to see in his own reflection in that mirror. Terry was reported missing to authorities on August 2nd. On August 5th, firefighters in North Phoenix were called to respond to a residential trash bin on fire located behind a church. When they were able to put out the fire, they found human remains inside. The remains were so badly damaged that identifying the victim took fingerprint analysis, but once those results came back, it was confirmed that those fingerprints were a perfect match to 46-year-old Terry Nelly. Angela Simpson had taken the body apart, both legs off, one arm off, and she placed the pieces into a City of Phoenix garbage can. Terry Nelly had been missing for 3 days, and nobody could have imagined that pieces of him would be found in trash cans. In the immediate aftermath of the body being found, Phoenix police officers had a victim, but no confirmed suspect, no confirmed crime scene. Investigators began working the case, and in the days that followed, an anonymous tip came in. Someone had seen Terry Nelly's motorized wheelchair abandoned outside of an apartment building in North Phoenix. When authorities made it to the building, and inside of the unit that a witness believed to be the building manager had alerted them to, what they found inside was devastating, to say the least. The apartment was drenched in absolutely covered in red, so much of it, everything was stained. The carpet had been removed, presumably to try and get rid of evidence, and DNA analysis confirmed that it all belonged to Terry, confirming that that was the crime scene that they had been looking for. That apartment building that they were called out to wasn't actually Angela's. It was the building of a man called Edward Cracker McFarland, who just so happened to be very good buddies with Angela Simpson. So finding Edward and finding Terry's wheelchair outside of his apartment building ultimately was part of what led investigators to finding Angela Simpson and searching her apartment, and they had more than enough reason to believe that it was both of them responsible for what happened to Terry. Allegedly, there was also another witness claiming that they saw Angela and Edward, and that they were fully talking about what they had done to Terry, bragging about it and saying that they would do it again. And as it turned out, police officers did not have to work very hard to find Angela Simpson because she was already in jail. Shortly after disposing of Terry's body and failing to get rid of evidence, both Angela and Edward had been arrested on an unrelated robbery charge, meaning that Angela Simpson was already sitting in a cell when Phoenix police detectives came to interview her about Terry Nelly. And she didn't ask for a lawyer, she didn't try to construct a story, she simply told them what happened. According to Phoenix News Times, she agreed to talk to investigators in exchange for a candy bar. Her confession is one of the most chilling ones that I've ever heard, because it's like the woman is talking about the weather. She could not be any more calmer, any more relaxed if she tried. She did not once minimize what she had done, she didn't once try to deflect blame. She explained what she did in detail, matching details that investigators were still in the process of uncovering. And she did it without any visible sign of regret. And her motive was simple. Terry Nelly was a snitch. According to her, Terry had, quote, told on a righteous person. He deserved what he got, end quote. When detectives pointed out that the Phoenix Police Department had no record of Terry Nelly ever being a police informant or a snitch, that as far as they could find, he had never cooperated with law enforcement, Angela responded with, quote, he told me he was a snitch. He told me himself, end quote. And when she acknowledged the possibility that he may have been lying or bragging and not actually a snitch, Angela responded with, quote, oops, if he wasn't, end quote. She had no remorse. She said so clearly and repeatedly, saying that she did not feel guilty, that she had no remorse, and that the only thing that upset her was that she would not be able to get rid of more stitches if she was behind bars. She described her only regret as not having more time with Terry Nelly, saying that she wished that she would have kept him alive for a full week instead of just 3 days. And she's laughing the entire time. She's like, ha ha ha, yeah, I used a hammer, my favorite hammer actually. Yeah, I think I left a piece of him in there. Oh, that dumpster? Yeah, I think I threw a thigh in there. Maybe I actually threw a foot in there as well. What the? Afterwards, she also talked about how she rode his wheelchair for fun up and down the street. She's cracking up the entire time she's talking about this, by the way. In a later interview, she's laughing, smiling again. She says, quote, I heard they said I was possessed by the devil. I think that's hilarious. Isn't it beautiful, end quote. Angela Simpson was charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and abandonment or concealment of body, and she pleaded guilty, meaning that there was no trial. She entered the plea and faced sentencing. On April 3rd of 2012, Judge Paul McCurdy sentenced Angela Simpson to natural life in prison, plus an additional 14 years for the other charges. Natural life in prison in Arizona means exactly what it sounds like. She will never be released. There is no possibility of parole. In her statement at sentencing, the only thing that Angela Simpson said was that she felt as if she was wrongly convicted. She said that she felt that way because she believed that what she had done was justified. Edward McFarland was also charged with 2 felonies, abandonment or concealment of a body and hindering prosecution. He wasn't charged with anything else because according to Angela, she acted alone and he just helped her dispose of the body. He also pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. To this day, Angela has no remorse, and she has said in every and any interview that she felt proud of what she did and that it would be a privilege to be able to do it again. She's like the exact kind of person that shows up in my nightmares. I don't know, I was thinking of this audio the other day and I was like, I wonder what the real story behind that is. I'm scared. Anyway, that is off from me today. Thank you for spending time with me today. I hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. And I will see you guys in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.
On the night of May 29th, 2016, 2 best friends, 46-year-old Cindy Waldron and 47-year-old Leanne Mitchell, were walking along a beach in Daintree Park in Queensland, Australia. The 2 of them had gotten together because Leanne had recently beaten breast cancer, and the 2 of them were childhood best friends, and because Leanne had just overcome this momentous thing, they decided to get together and go on a little celebratory vacation. So on this particular night, they left the little bungalow they were staying in and they walked down to the beach to go for a little late night stroll. It was about 10:30 at night, but when they got down to the beach, everything was just so perfect. The weather was beautiful, the sky was totally clear, and it was warm, and so they decided they were gonna go for a little swim. And so the 2 women, they waded out into the ocean till they were about hip deep, and they just kind of walked along the shore in about hip depth water, and they were kind of swimming and frolicking around until at some point they stopped and they faced each other. Now, I don't know why they stopped and faced each other. I don't know the particular of, what their relationship really was, but they stopped and they faced each other, and Leanne, her back was to the shore, and Cindy's back was to the ocean. And right after they stopped and turned to meet each other's gaze, all of a sudden, Cindy would have presumably felt a huge pressure and pain on one of her legs, and she began to scream. And she only screamed out 3 words. She just said, "It's got me." Now, initially, Leanne thought that maybe some seaweed or something had brushed up against Cindy's leg and she had just panicked. And so Leanne grabbed Cindy by the arms, both of her arms, and she just said, "I've got you, baby, I've got you," trying to comfort her. But right then thereafter, Cindy was yanked backwards and under the water further out to sea. And because Leanne was holding on to Cindy's arms, she was also yanked further out to sea. Well, it was at this point that Leanne realized that something really did have Cindy, and it was trying to take her. And so Leanne went into full combat mode. She dove forward and she started punching and slapping at the water, reaching under the water, trying to find out what this thing was and trying to fend it off. And eventually her hand came to rest on the massive head of a 4.5 meter long or 14 or so foot long saltwater crocodile, and it had Cindy by the leg. So Leanne went diving under the water and she's trying to fight this crocodile. But of course, she's punching it and hitting it, whatever. it's not doing anything to this crocodile. The crocodile is just pulling them further and further out into the ocean until eventually the crocodile would just kind of yank its head back, pull really fast, and Cindy was ripped out of Leanne's arms. And when this happened, Leanne went diving under the water again to try and find Cindy and this crocodile, to try and fight this crocodile, but it was dark, the water was murky, she couldn't feel or see anything, so this did nothing. So Leanne eventually just got up and she went running up onto the beach and she was just screaming Cindy's name, Cindy, Cindy. But of course, it being 10:30 at night, there was nobody there. There was no help to come. So eventually, Leanne would go and report this to authorities, and authorities would go out, they would launch a search. For the next couple days, they didn't find anything. It wasn't until June 3rd that they found this 14-foot long crocodile, and they would end up shooting it, killing it. And when they did a necropsy on it, inside of this crocodile, there was Cindy. So they got the crocodile that did it. Leanne, for years later, would undergo a lot of therapy to try and deal with this. She was admitted to the hospital in 2019 for post-traumatic stress. I don't know how she's doing today, but we can only hope that she's getting the help that she needs and she's able to recover in some way from this extremely traumatic event.
I'm Mexican, if you guys didn't know. I was born in Guadalajara, Jalisco, and I want to talk about what's going on in Mexico right now because it feels like it just keeps going from bad to worse. Mexico is in pure chaos following the death of Nemesio Suguera Cervantes, also referred to as El Mencho, the country's most wanted man, the top leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, one of Mexico's most dangerous and feared cartels. He's gone, and now everyone in his world and beyond is retaliating. Just picture this. You're on vacation in Puerto Vallarta. It's Sunday, February 22nd. You wake up at your beachfront hotel to what sounds like construction noises. You wake up, you look outside, smoke everywhere. Within minutes, hotel staff is knocking on your door. Stay inside, lock the doors, do not leave. Outside of your hotel, taxi cabs are being set on fire, businesses as well, gas stations, shooting and blockades on every street. The Mexican military present, trying to keep up with the cartel members fighting. Flights are canceled indefinitely. Schools have been suspended. American tourists and Mexican residents have been advised to shelter in place and do not move. It started in Jalisco, but it spread out to other states. Some reports stating that at least 8 other states have been affected. It is pure and utter chaos, leaving everyone wondering what in the world happened. About 180 miles away in the town of Tapalpa, Mexican special forces had just successfully ended the most powerful cartel leader in the Western Hemisphere. Just months before the 2026 World Cup, by the way, which only adds a layer of havoc to the entire situation, the US had issued a $15 million reward for any information leading to El Mencho's whereabouts, Mexico also offering around the same amount. And when they got him, the cartel unleashed absolute disaster. To understand what happened, you need to know who El Mencho was. He was born in 1966 in the state of Michoacan, and in the 1980s, he illegally crossed to California looking for a better life. Instead, he began selling. In California, he was arrested a few times. He served nearly 3 years in prison. Then he was sent back to Mexico. And back in Jalisco, surprisingly enough, shockingly enough, he became a police officer. But that path wasn't going to be the one for him for too long, because then he was eventually recruited by a cartel leader who pretty much took him underneath his wing. El Mencho learned the business quickly, and very quickly people in that world began knowing his name, earning him a reputation as a cruel, calculated, ruthless man. When the cartel group that he originally joined fell apart, for one reason or the other, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel came to be, and El Mencho was the big bad boss. He seized the opportunity and he took control. For years, he was almost like a ghost to authorities. His name appeared time and time again on intelligence reports, military operations, but nobody knew exactly where or how to find him. Under his leadership, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel went from being a small local group to controlling more than half of Mexico. He was selling a lot of product, different kinds, to everyone, shipping product not only to the States but also to Europe and Asia. The cartel grew tremendously in size, buying out people to be on their side and using brutal violence. But El Mencho wanted even more power, so what did he do? He started legitimate businesses in cattle ranching, farming, and construction, all fronts to only hide his billions worth of illegal money. Another terrifying thing is that what he was doing, what he was running, was kind of like a family business. El Mencho's wife, Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia, was arrested in 2021 and identified as the person behind running the cartel's finances. She was released from prison in February of 2025, just days before El Mencho's capture. His son, Ruben Osugara Gonzalez, nicknamed El Menchito, was sentenced to life in prison by a U.S. court in March of 2025 for weapon charges, and his daughter had also served a 30-month jail sentence in the States for financial crimes. Even El Mencho's son-in-law, Cristian Fernando Gutierrez Ochoa, was a top cartel leader. He allegedly kidnapped 2 Mexican Navy members back in 2021 to pressure authorities to release El Mencho's wife. Then he decided to disappear, faked his own passing, and fled to California, where he lived underneath a fake name until his arrest in November of 2024. And how was El Mencho able to avoid capture for so long, you may be wondering? Well, his network of people who were willing to protect him was and is massive. Not only members of the cartel who would do absolutely anything for him, but even authorities like police officers, members of the military. The cartel bought out so many people to benefit them to be able to operate in the way that they wanted to. He had people across the country willing to keep him hidden anywhere that he went. The amount of loyalty that he had from so many people is incomprehensible. But then when someone from his circle, described to be a romantic partner who was already underneath surveillance by military intelligence agents, went to go see him in one of his hideout areas, and that is how the Mexican army was informed of his whereabouts. Based on the state of the house that they found him in, they believed that he had been there, or people had been there, for at least a few weeks. Authorities discovered that El Mencho remained at that location surrounded by security detail, and the operation to capture him was planned on that same day, February 21st. Special forces moved in, backed by Air Force helicopters and the National Guard, but of course it wasn't going to be easy because the cartel fought back hard. They had armored vehicles, heavy weapons, and even rocket launchers that could take down aircraft, and that they did. 8 cartel members didn't make it out. 3 more, including El Mencho, were wounded and passed while being flown to Mexico City. It was over, or so they thought. Because within hours, Mexico erupted, cartel members hijacking buses, cargo trucks, and cars. They set them on fire, used them to block highways. Over 250 roadblocks were reported. In Puerto Vallarta, the beach paradise turned into a war zone. Video showed thick black smoke rising over the hotels. People were in full panic mode. There's videos online even of the airports. They looked so scary. Airlines were scrambling. Delta, United, American, Southwest, and Air Canada all canceled flights to and from Puerto Vallarta in Guadalajara. Popular tourist destinations like Cancun, Tijuana, Mazatlan, they were also experiencing similar things. A Texas resident told reporters that he was on one of the last planes out of Puerto Vallarta. The captain opened the doors and let about 80 additional people on board, far beyond capacity, in a desperate attempt to get them to safety. Governor Pablo Lemus Navarro activated Code Red, the state's highest emergency protocol. He issued urgent warnings, quote, "We recommend not traveling on roads. The violent incidents have spread to at least 5 federal entities. The blockades have shifted to territorial boundaries," end quote. The U.S. Embassy in Mexico also issued urgent warnings. Canada did as well, and by Monday, according to various reports, the number of total casualties were 25 National Guard members, 30 suspected cartel members in Jalisco, an additional 4 in Michoacan, 1 prison guard, 1 Jalisco State Prosecutor's Office agent, 1 unidentified civilian, El Mencho, and 2 of his bodyguards. And a really, really scary thing is that even though they got El Mencho 100%, there are so many people in line to replace him. The Mexican president just announced that as of yesterday, February 24th, the situation began to stabilize. However, based on the things that I'm seeing on social media, I don't really know what stable is supposed to mean. And talking about things being stable, an anthropologist who studies violence in Mexico has spoken on the matter, saying, quote, "The government has tended to equate crime statistics with peace. The homicide rate goes down. That means there's peace. That's not actually true," he explained. "There are plenty of situations where the cartel has had a huge amount of local power and there's not a lot of homicides or disappearances because they don't need to do them. In other words, he's saying calm does not mean control. It means that the cartel is so powerful that they don't feel the need to cause chaos to maintain their power, their dominance." El Mencho's cartel was a key supplier, but him being gone unfortunately will not stop the flow, which is horrific. Someone else will take over because the money is too big, the demand is too high. But even though his absence will not stop anything for the families who have lost loved ones to what he was selling, for the communities who have suffered from fighting against the cartel, for the Mexican soldiers who were willing to risk their lives, at the very least, it's something. Guadalajara is set to host 4 FIFA World Cup matches in June of this year, so just months away. They expect around 3 million visitors, so we'll have to see what happens with that. Mitchell and I, my fiance, we're actually considering going to Mexico for the World Cup as well. It's so sad to see. I know that some of you guys that watch my videos either live in Mexico or have close family members that do, so please let me know if I got anything wrong. Please let me know if I missed anything, and please know that my heart is with you. That's all from me today. Let me know your thoughts on this. Yeah, hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.